But there it was, 50 tons of marijuana and hashish that the Coast Guard found aboard a barge in the bay this morning. Street value almost $200 million and a suspect with a very interesting jailhouse past. We have two reports tonight, beginning with correspondent Wilson Van Alst.
The U.S. Coast Guard was watching and taking this videotape last night as the ocean-going tug Intrepid Venture steamed in through the Golden Gate. The Coast Guard and customs agents had information the tug was towing a barge loaded with drugs. They say she left the Bay Area on May 6th, allegedly met up with a mothership about 1,000 miles offshore, took on a load of Asian hashish and marijuana, and then steamed back to San Francisco. U.S. Customs agent in charge, Roland Klink.
We boarded it last night about 9:30, and if you've seen it, you can see that we searched the containers on top of the barge first. It wasn't until about 5:30 this morning that we drilled through the floor and discovered the compartments underneath the barge and found the hashish and marijuana.
All morning long, the agents and Coast Guard personnel unloaded the barge's secret compartments. The hashish came out in burlap bags. The marijuana was in boxes. After 4 hours, the workers took a break. From inside one of the holds, there was a voice.
Hey, Charlie, we're not even halfway.
Not even?
Not even halfway, man.
And as the tally continued into the afternoon, it mounted to some 37 tons of hashish and 13 tons of marijuana. Enforcement agents say that is more hashish than they have seized in the past 5 years combined. Still, Tom Sheehan of the Drug Enforcement Administration calls the seizure just a skirmish in the overall war on drugs.
People will do anything to make a profit, and there is obviously a profit to be made in marijuana and in hashish. I think what's unusual about this case is that we have what appears to be Southwest Asian hashish and Southeast Asian marijuana. That indicates to us that it's a pretty sophisticated operation, at least as far as the overseas portion of it goes.
Authorities will be asking the people arrested aboard the Intrepid Venture who their overseas contacts were and where they were getting the money to buy 50 tons of drugs and the ships to carry them in. Wilson Van Alst, News Center 4.
I'm Bob Serkin in Napa, where this morning a team of federal agents broke down the door of this house, beginning a day-long search for more evidence in the huge drug smuggling case. This is the business address for Dredge Masters, a tugboat company owned and operated by suspects Calvin Robinson and his family. It's also the home of Robinson's sister, Sue Lemons, and her husband, Don. Sue Lemons, the bookkeeper for Dredge Masters, a company federal agents say the Robinson family used to launder its drug money. This Napa Mortgage Company is another business under investigation for alleged drug money laundering. The drug case against the Robinson family began in Napa last December with an informant coming to narcotics investigator Chris Dern, telling him
that the people in Dredge Masters Corporation were involved in smuggling and were importing large amounts of narcotics from overseas.
Importing them to Napa?
To Napa County.
For sale?
That's what I understood.
It was Dern later turning his information over to U.S. Customs, then turning on his radio this morning to hear about the biggest hashish bust in U.S. history, but not to his complete surprise that it began in Napa.
It's a place where people who are involved in organized crime at the higher levels are going to raise their families and their children.
We're talking about a tremendous amount of marijuana, hashish, and money here. Does it shock you?
No, it doesn't. We are in a world where we're at war with drugs in our country.
47-year-old Calvin Robinson of Corning, the alleged kingpin of the smuggling empire, is no stranger to trouble. According to federal agents, Robinson has served a total of 19 years in prisons for crimes ranging from breaking and entering to counterfeiting. Robinson released earlier this year. In 1980, while doing time in the Lompoc Federal Prison, Robinson's cellmate was the notorious convicted Soviet spy Christopher Boyce. Robinson was accused of helping Boyce escape Lompoc, but the charges were later dropped and Boyce was recaptured. Federal sources close to this case tell us more search and arrest warrants are being drawn up and will be served in Napa and other parts of Northern California later this week. Bob Serkin, News Center 4, Napa.
Incidentally, a more controversial part of the administration's drug policy has apparently been revised now. The Justice Department confirmed today that it will no longer seize vessels found with only small amounts of drugs if these boats are in international waters, but the so-called zero-tolerance policy will still apply within the 12-mile limit.
From the drug...
The total haul, 12.5 tons of marijuana and 37.5 tons of Afghani hashish welded into the barge. Authorities believe the tug picked up its illicit cargo from a mothership about 1,200 miles off San Francisco. They believe it was part of a huge, well-organized, and extremely well-financed international drug cartel.
We estimate that the total street value of the seizures today was somewhere in excess of $160 million, $162 million. What would have been required as a down payment for that overseas is anybody's guess. A guesstimate is $8 to $10 million.
No one from the government's drug task force is pretending that the $162 million seizure is going to put an end to drug trafficking, but they do insist that it will have a powerful effect.
It's a financial loss. This ruined their whole day. They're hurting.
5 people were on board the tug at the time of the seizure. They were Calvin, Frank, John, and William Robinson, along with Wesley Bastin, all from the Bay Area. And the DEA thinks they were specialists.
You have the transportation experts, you have the offload experts, you have the financiers, the people who handle the return of the cash going back overseas.
Authorities say that the drugs that were seized here were probably not going to be sold in California, but were going to be shipped back east. The hashish was due to be adulterated with something of the same color and texture, literally horse manure, and then sold to unsuspecting customers in major American cities. The DEA says the only way the United States will win the war on drugs is for both smugglers and users to finally find out that the risks are just too high. In San Francisco, Paul Jeske, Channel 7 News Tonight.
By the way, horse manure is a common additive in cases like this. And last night when Channel 7 News originally showed you the exclusive footage of that huge bust getting underway, we had no real idea what the tug, again named Intrepid Venture, was actually hauling. Well, obviously now we know. Donna?